Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present, the jury is not present, the matter is on for trial.
Thank you. So good morning. I heard the council wanted to see me about something.
Yes, please.
All right, why don't you come on over to sidebar?
All rise.
You
Getting your dream kitchen is easier than you think. Cabinets to Go can design a beautiful, high quality, and affordable kitchen makeover that is sure to wow. From a free 3D
You are unmuted.
All right, why don't council calm down?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Tommy, and this is The Lifeboat. The Karen Reed murder trial will be underway here shortly. I know that some of the day today is going to be spent going out to they're doing a field trip, so to speak, where they're going to be bringing out the jury to, I believe, the Albertson crime scene. I can't imagine where else they would be bringing them. Yeah, crime scene. No, and I do believe that is, there's been talk of them going to, there's something today that they're going to be doing out at the McCabe house. At least I believe that was the original plan. Krista, Melinda, good to see you. Let's see, just me. I don't have my glasses, so it's a little bit more difficult to read everyone's name. I'm going to bail in a second and go get some glasses while all this is going on. I just wanted to say good morning. I'm sorry that I was running a little late. Believe it or not, it took me about 10 minutes to get from my bed to this chair. My lower back right now is presenting a challenge. So, all right, peeps, I'm going to be back here shortly. In the meantime, enjoy the dulcet tones of the courtroom in Dedham, Mass. Be right back. Or not.
Yes, please.
Should be 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. What? You absolutely did not. Come on.
All rise, your attention. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, all persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, the Justice of the Superior Court, holding in Dedham within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Honorable, my ass.
Please be seated.
For the record, before the court is Commonwealth versus King
Sorry,
Reed,
not sorry.
CR 117.
Woman's got less honor than anyone I've ever met.
Present, the matter is on for
And
trial.
holy God, think of the
Thank you
people
very
I've
much,
met.
Madam Clerk. Good morning
Huh?
again, counsel. Good morning again, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors.
Let's get this squared away.
I'm very much aware that we're leaving you in another room waiting, but we were working this morning to help streamline things and we were successful, so we do appreciate your patience. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone nodded affirmatively or said yes. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did any of you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Thank you. Everyone said no. All right, folks, as you know, this morning we are going on a view. And a view is simply, we're going to a place that you've heard about and that you will continue to hear about during the course of the trial. The purpose of the view is to help you better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. So the view that we're going on is part of the case, and it means that the observations that you make there can be used and considered by you in your deliberations on this case in reaching a verdict. So we're going to, you've heard 34 Fairview Road in Canton. The lawyers and I will accompany you. For the Commonwealth, we'll be accompanied by Attorney Brennan, and ADA Lally, ADA Schillinger, and for the defense, Attorney Yannetti and Attorney Little. The lawyers will have the opportunity, Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Brennan, have the opportunity to point out various things that they may want you to direct your attention to. Otherwise, There's no conversation between the lawyers and the jurors. So it's simply in a few minutes, you'll hear a little bit from each Mr. Brennan and Ms. Giannetti about what they want you to look at. And then when we get there, they'll direct you, look in this direction. They won't be able to testify to you, but they'll direct you in what they want you to look at. While you're in the view, you're not to take any notes, you're not to take any pictures.
Kristen,
You're
Melinda,
not
this
to
is way
conduct
more common
any
than you would
independent
think. This happens a
investigation
lot
at
in
all
especially murder
during the
cases,
view or any time during
where
the
they will
trial.
bring out the
You're not
jury
to
to see
return to
the
the
particular
scene or
crime
ask
scene,
anybody to go
especially if
back
it's
there for you. Today's your chance. You'll see photographs during the course of the trial, I bet. But today's your chance to really look at everything. So the best way to summarize a view is that your job is to simply stop and look. It's really no more complicated than that. So your responsibility is to see the place, observe it carefully, and to remember what you see. Now, during the trip to and from the view, and while at the view, you're not to discuss this case or anything about it with other jurors. We'll be accompanied by court officers who will direct you, and the court officers are there for all of us. So you'll be under their supervision until you're returned back here. So that's basically it.
Bev.
We'll be leaving in a few minutes, but first, before Madam Clerk swears the court officers in, Mr. Brennan, do you want to make a view opening?
May I?
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Her Honor explained to you, we're going to go to 34 Fairview Road. We have some exhibits that are already in evidence. You haven't had a long time to look at them, study them. But essentially,
Never hear
we're
this
going to
guy.
go to 34 Fairview Road. I ask you to pay attention to the street, the front yard of the home. And you'll see to the left side of the front yard in the corner, there'll be a car. It's the Lexus that we've spoken about, the defendant's Lexus. And you'll also see a flagpole and a fire hydrant. And so I'd ask you to take a look from different vantage points. Take a look from that area where the flagpole is. From where
Officers,
the fire hydrant is.
Smarmy J. Smarmy, attorney at law. This dude.
Concrete there comes up a little bit. I'd ask
Yes,
you
Grace, they can take notes on
One of
the
guys'
field trip.
request is
And I think
April 25th.
I'm talking over this guy because he's full of shit anyway. Sorry, but
So the weather will be very different. The temperature will be different. The conditions will be different.
yeah, obviously it won't be
So
snowing.
there'll
It won't be
10
midnight.
o'clock. It won't be the same visibility. It won't be the same elements of the.
Kristen Melinda, this one is so important because they claim that a dozen people walked out of this house, came out the front stairs, walked down that, right? You got to go right down basically the lawn. You'd be on the other side of it, but you're going right down the same lawn he's laying on. Then you got to go get in your car and drive with your headlights past the lawn they're laying on. I think this is one of those that may be a big deal. Oh, Ann from Mass says no notes and no photos. Well, I knew photos wouldn't be, but that's pretty twisted if they can't take notes. Thank you, Ann.
From the right rear dwelling. And I also ask you to take note of, on the top of the hatchback, there is a project tree. I ask you to look at that as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Ms. Giannetti?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning. As I told you at the start of the trial, my name is David Yannetti. I have an office in Boston and in Dedham. And on behalf of my co-counsel, we will be accompanying you on the view that you will take today. Although the view is not evidence, I suggest to you that you will find it to be helpful, important, even necessary as you later do your investigation of this case within the four walls of this courtroom. You've already received in evidence, some photos and videos, but there is no substitute for your own two eyes. As we all know, photos and videos sometimes can be misleading in terms of relative distances, depending upon the perspective from which the photo is taken. But your eyes are the best computer that you could bring to the view. When we get to 34 Fairview, we will be pointing out certain things that we'd like you to observe. The house, the second floor window to that house, the 3 front doors in the front of the house, the driveway, the street, the front lawn, and the flagpole. And we'll be asking you specifically to consider the distance between that second floor front window and the front lawn. The distance between the front doors to the house and that front lawn. The distance between the driveway to the front lawn. And we'll be asking you to take a good look at that Lexus, to stand next to it, to size it up, to take it in. You were all selected as jurors because the parties entrusted that you would do a proper investigation of this case within this courtroom. On behalf of Ms. Reed, we have every confidence that you will do a proper investigation. Thank you.
All right, jurors, I have to make something very clear. So the purpose of this view is to help you better to understand the evidence that you'll hear during the trial and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view you'll take is part of this case. The observations that you make while on the view may be used and considered by you in your deliberations in reaching a verdict. So at the
Looks
end
like
of
Bev
the
had those
trial,
roots
when I
dyed.
explain to you what is evidence and what is not, I'll remind you that your observations on this view can be used by you in your deliberations. Also, while you're in the view, the same way you're not to take any notes or photographs, you're not to conduct any investigation on this case. You really are simply to stop and look, okay? Those are the instructions. We will see you in a few minutes. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk has to swear in the court officers.
If you could all raise your right hand, please. Do each of you solemnly swear that you will take the jury upon the premises in question and there suffer them to view the same or any property, place, or thing bearing upon the issue in the trial as the parties may think necessary? That you will not permit the parties to enter into a debate in the hearing of the jury, nor any person to speak to them unless it be the attorneys of record, then only to point out such places or things as they may deem expedient for the determination of the issues.
Well,
That
that's
you will keep
fascinating. I've
the
never heard
jury
anything like this.
together until they shall return to court, unless the court shall otherwise order, so help you God. Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, please, jurors follow me.
Honorable.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye. I do not know whether or not I kind of doubt that they're going to bring the ability for all of us to watch what they do over there at the Fulham McCabe House. This is probably this happens a lot in jurors. You'd be really surprised that how often this happens. You know, Ann from Mass makes an interesting point here, right? No notes is weird, and praise God, not all of us speak with that accent. Hey, from time to time, I've been known to slip into that accent, but no, it's probably a good thing that when the rest of America got around to speaking, they managed to bring the letter R with them because the people from Massachusetts very often seem to have lost the letter A and replaced it with an AH. And she actually works on it really hard. There, you'll see times when she sounds like she's from Southie, like she really. By the way, if you're a Massachusetts, if you're familiar with Massachusetts, if you're listening to me from another country, South Boston, Massachusetts, is to Massachusetts what like Liverpool is to the accents of Britain, right? It's that almost. It's the way that the Cockney was so much different than everything else. You get to South Boston, and the way that people speak is literally fascinating. I lived in Southie for one summer, for a little more than one summer. Not more than a year, but I spent probably 5.5, 6 months in Southie, and it's it's an adventure. It's an odd place. Now, as I was saying earlier, the field trip thing happens a lot more than you would think, and there are times where it's a necessity. Sometimes it almost seems like it's busy work, right? They're taking people out and walking them around a crime scene. And if the crime scene is a field, maybe they want people to get an image of where somebody took their last breath or whatever the case may be. This is completely different because of the complexities of this case. This one is fairly important in terms of why this field trip is a necessity. If you believe the prosecution's case, right? And by the way, before we get going, I'm not 100% convinced that Karen Reed might not have hit this guy with her car. Honest to God. And the reason I say that is because I've recently come to believe that we don't know crap. You know what I mean? The number of people that reach out to me to tell me about what's going on in my life, and there's just none of us know what happened. No matter what happened, we don't know if Karen Reed backed into her boyfriend. Karen Reed made statements, right? God forbid anybody makes a statement. If you're being charged with anything, doing an interview might not be the best idea. I'm from an hour north in Maine and have a much smaller version of that Boston to Mainer accent. But down east Mainers have a heavy accent too, to be sure. Just real briefly, to be sure, especially, there are certain parts of Maine where you really get the accent. It is completely unique and different, and I think you kind of have to maybe be from that part of the country. But if I meet people from Maine, I always know they're from Maine. I have no problem whatsoever. And if I meet somebody from Massachusetts, I promise you I know they're from Massachusetts, right? For real. And when I lived there, I could usually tell you about what part of Massachusetts that they were from. Maine has this is going to offend a bunch of people. Maine doesn't sound guttural. Right? There's something about the Massachusetts accent. To me, Maine reminds me more of Vermont and New Hampshire kind of accents. And Massachusetts has almost a New York kind of a quality to it, right? You'll hear people sometimes say, I couldn't tell if he was from New York or Boston. They're so different in accents, but they're so over the top, a lot of them. Like if you get somebody with a real Brooklyn accent that says coffee, they start sounding a little bit like the people in but Maine accents are just slightly, it's unique. And you know what's crazy, Scotty? You'll get a kick out of this. WMTW, Poland Spring, Maine, was my local affiliate for television growing up. Vermont is such a small state that, like your ABC affiliate, there's no, especially at the time, there was no ABC affiliate in the state of Vermont. They didn't have a local desk or anything else. So they would go to the closest local affiliate, which was WMTW TV, Poland Spring, Maine. And I've talked about this on the boat before, but there was a guy named Marty Angstrom. And Marty Angstrom was absolutely phenomenal. He would do this little report thing, and at the end, he would say, now back to the host, was a guy named Tom Elliman, and his smile would go on like a light switch, and it was the funniest crap you've ever seen. I think you can Google it. Someone did last time, but he would smile and go, like right in the camera. And growing up, you didn't know any better. This was the only news program we had ever seen. And as you got older and saw what it looked like outside of Poland Spring, Maine, it was really a pisser. So, but I digress. Back to the field trip. If you believe the prosecution's case in this, right? And I don't necessarily throw out all of the baby with the bathwater on this thing. I think that there is a chance that Karen Reed may have been a little bit more of a player in this than she knows. I don't think she hit him with the car, but I think Karen Reed was blacked out. I think that Karen Reed doesn't have a clue what happened to her that night. And it's really a bit of a cautionary tale, right? I don't know. I used to say stuff like, well, all of us have been blacked out drunk before. And then I got an email from a woman that said, I've never been drunk, period, right? There are people that have never imbibed. There are people that have never gone down that path. And then there are those of us very kind of lifeboaty, people who have experimented, pretty seriously with drugs. If you have, more than likely you have experienced a blackout. And there is it will be, I don't know. This is an interesting comment too. The trip will be informative regarding scale and scope and how close the non-responsive Alberts were. Lenny, spot on. And I think this is a great opportunity for intelligent people to look and say, what do you think two groups of people are going to get out of this? Because if you're somebody that is leaning toward the defense, This field trip is going to be fascinating because the prosecution claims that about a dozen people walked down that stairs, walked down that 20 feet, I think they said it was, which is like the little walkway that everybody has going to the house. Keeping in mind, this was a night where there was a freshly fallen, silent shroud of snow, right? The lawn should have been white. There would have been a body, by the way, about the same size as me, right? John O'Keefe and I are pretty similar in size. He was about 6 foot, right? So I'm about 6'2". He was about 220 pounds. I'm down from that now. What with all of the rampant crack smoking and cocaine use, I'm down to about 200 pounds on the nose. I'm being facetious, folks. And hopefully most of you got that, but there's a lot of jokes made about my cocaine use, so I thought I would get it. Anyway, now I'm closer to right at the 200-pound mark. For a guy my size to be laying on a white snow lawn, right, near the flagpole. Now, that's important. You'll hear the defense say a lot, well, near the flagpole, near the flagpole. Why? If you're driving down a street, right, whether you want to or not, if you're a plow driver, if you're just somebody from Massachusetts out on a ride, you go past this house and your eye is going to find the flagpole. It's the most distinctive feature on the property. It is the tallest part, right? You are absolutely going to move your eyes to the flagpole. How then do you maybe not see the body laying near it? Now, look, I've talked about this on the boat a lot. We have an autopilot feature as human beings that's somewhat fascinating. Like, how many times do you get home and go, holy crap, I literally have zero memory of any red lights that I caught. I don't have any memory of stopping at any, taking rights, lefts. You get home and go, holy crap, I don't even remember driving home. And it's because we have the ability as human beings to go on autopilot. I mean, you get in your car and as your butt is hitting the seat, you're putting on a seatbelt, you're putting your keys in the car, you're turning it. All of those things have been done so many times that they're autopiloted. You don't have to think about it, right? You do not have to take a second to think about it. You push the car into gear and you drive away. But when it's dark out, those lights are going to illuminate that entire lawn. Now, you may not see it if you're the one driving down the road. You may be on autopilot. You might look straight ahead of you. But if a dozen people had to come out of that house and walk down that pathway, people were walking down that pathway while cars were leaving. There would have been lights illuminating that lawn as people were walking down that pathway. I don't know what happened with Karen Reed. I don't. I know that she has contradicted herself a bunch. She's said things that really have muddied this. And it's such a textbook example of why you should never talk to anyone in authority. Capiche? People say, well, if you're not guilty, you got nothing to worry about. Horseshit. You should never talk to the police if you're being, and if they think you had something to do with a crime, you should never talk to the police. If you're guilty, definitely don't do it. And if you're innocent, you twice as much need a lawyer. It's just that simple. They will absolutely try to fit you into the case. Karen Reed is the key, right, that these two families needed for this case. Plain and simple. She's the perfect scapegoat. And folks, if you followed this trial, right, even if you didn't follow the first one, Trooper Proctor was assigned to be the person that headed up this case, right? Handpicked. I would say he was handpicked the way that somebody might handpick Lee Harvey Oswald, right? I mean, for real, you're sending this person, you're handpicking this individual. Yeah, reasonable doubt for days. I think Trooper Proctor was a patsy from Jump Street. I think they wanted somebody in there that they could shove around. Because if you put a real cop in there, they were going to go, wait a second. This entire department is supposed to recuse themselves. We're going to do the interviews at that police department. We don't see this as a problem. Any cop, and I don't mean any stand-up guy. I mean any guy. Look, you could be a crooked cop. You'd still be smart enough to go, hey, maybe we shouldn't frickin' interview anybody right down at the police station in question, right? The one that everybody in this family happens to work out of. The one where the murderer could have been, right, decided to go and move some police cars around at 2:00 in the morning after a long day where he didn't hang out because he was so tired he wanted to go home and go to sleep. But you didn't go home. You went down to the police station and you started moving cars around, right? Waiting to make a phone call at 2:00 in the morning and talk for 22 seconds. 22 seconds, right? And he got on the stand, right? What's his name? The guy from the Fed. Somebody help me with his name. Oh, that bird's going to drive me nuts. Do you hear that? He's in my chimney. Terrible birds. Yeah, you never doing an interview the way that this was done. But anyway, so Trooper Proctor takes over this case and breaks every single rule that you possibly can as an officer of the law or an investigator. I'm not playing. He has interviews at people's houses, right? Which is fine. If you're going to interview somebody, you could do it for the sake of, you don't have to have somebody at a police station. It sure as shit helps when you do it at a police station, though, doesn't it? Because we have an audio record, we have a video record, right? And we see it in a room where everybody else is kind of interviewed in the same place, and it kind of makes it a little bit easier, but that's okay. Go out and interview somebody at the house. While they're there, they go, oh, hold on, somebody else from the case that's a witness, they're here too. You want to interview them? Okay, sure. And I walk 6 feet away and listen to what that person tells the cop. You understand that's tainted from Jump Street. And Anne from Massachusetts astutely says, I'm interested to see how the prosecutor can swing the fact that Proctor was fired because of what he did in this case. And this is absolutely a cold, hard fact, right? Absolutely a cold, hard fact. This person was fired because of how they mishandled this case. And I'll tell you something, folks. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any parties involved or anything else, but there are a couple of jobs that are famously difficult to get fired from, right? Being someone who works for the post office, right? The term going postal was a term that was coined because there was a series of workers who, when they got fired from the post office, were so mother-loving shocked that someone was able to fire them, that they went back with automatic weapons and started killing people. And the term going postal as a term to lose your mind and freak out and want to do revenge or whatever came directly from that, because you literally cannot get fired. So when someone does, they get really, really salty about it, right? Really salty about it. It is more difficult to get fired from the Massachusetts state troopers department than any place. And but this is state troopers anywhere. Honestly, cops, troopers, this is not a job you get fired from. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or hate on cops or anything else, but if you got fired, you got any idea what a dirtbag you are? Because what they normally do is just move you. They have very, very strong unions. They move you. So if you're a crappy cop, if you guys are internet people like I am, if you're a YouTube guy, you may have seen a police officer out there that they're calling the anabolic cop, because this was a little guy who bulked up over the course of about a year, right? The kind of blow up that doesn't look normal, where he gets all kind of puffy, and then he started raging on people, and he threw a person to the ground that, had absolutely no reason to be tossed on the ground. And then he arrested somebody at their house for public intoxication. Kind of hard for the public intoxication thing. But this guy screwed up so badly, and he did it on film. Did they fire him? Of course not. They don't do that to cops, right? Or priests. They move them. Just stuff them off somewhere else. No one's ever going to know, right? No one's ever going to know. And if there's no way in hell you can save that cop, right? If you cannot save that cop, then they'll let you quit, right? They let you quit. Because then when you go to the next place, you can say, yeah, there was no disciplinary action or whatever. I quit from the last place I was at. Why? Politics and, the office it wasn't a great environment, blah, blah, blah. But nobody gets fired. He left the party because they didn't have hard liquor to continue his all day, all night drinking. So he moved some cars. Classic. Lenny followed this case because that's exactly what happened. And he even freaking said that on the stand. He said he bowed out from the after party. Why is that? Well, I didn't have any hard booze. I mean, it was going to be beer drinking. And you know what? Look, man, if your poison isn't beer, it's okay. But I don't know, man. I spent the entirety of my adult life a drug addict, right? I've always been addicted to drugs. So that as a concept to me, like if that was my poison, if I was an alcoholic, I promise you, I'd have a couple of cocktails. I would get beer. I would get whatever. No, this is a dude that absolutely needs hard booze. He's going to throw it back, right? And his poison is scotch, right? That's what he was saying. Lisa Miller, I hope you feel better. I'm sorry that you're not feeling well. I'm having a bit of problems myself. Hold on 1 second. We're just checking news updates here real quickly. Good Lord in heaven. This just came from a friend
Integrity,
of mine.
service, and excellence. That's what you can expect when working with Pennington Law, with the experience to plan and fight for what's yours.
Sorry. I was somehow I was hearing stuff. So in the last city that I lived in Reno, Nevada, a man has just been convicted of having more than 1 million doses of fentanyl. Good God in heaven, man. I wonder how many of those 1 million doses of fentanyl carried a more than 2 milligrams. How many of those 1 million doses could kill somebody? Yeah, I just wanted to see if I know. I did not, though. Sorry, hold on. They found this cat throwing backpacks, multiple, over a fence. He's getting life in prison, but he'll be eligible for parole in 10 years. It's a solid ass legal system, right? Solid. Anyway, all things considering, because this is the lifeboat, this case, if alcohol were not involved, I think that John O'Keefe would still be alive. And I think that it really shines a light into this family. Since Lenny has followed this as closely as she has, did watching them throw shots back, I mean, was it reminiscent of a time in your life where you were way younger and way less, it's the word I'm looking for, mature, responsible? It's embarrassing. Oh my God, Kelly Gerling, I'm so sorry. We get thoughts and prayers, folks. Get some ones. Hey, Grace Twinkletoes, good to see you. Currently praying for a friend whose daughter lost her partner to an overdose, poisoning of fentanyl. And you know what? This is, I'm very sorry for your loss, Kelly. This is neither here nor there, but I think it's one of those things that it may seem like we're splitting hairs, but there is kind of an importance to this because of the fight in particular that we're currently fighting. But we do things in this country, and we do things as a society where, the example that gets used all the time is a Kleenex. Grab a Kleenex or make a Xerox copy. If I make that on a copier, right, that's made by by somebody other than Xerox, it's still a Xerox copy. If I grab a tissue out of a box and it's not made by Kleenex, right, it's made by some other company, we're still going to call it a Kleenex, right? Because these things become, fentanyl is almost gone at this point from what's coming across the border. They have been phasing out fentanyl in the product for a while, and the reason is they have a cheaper product that they can put in its place. And when you're mixing your opiate with a very strong sedative, in this case, people will say it's a benzo. It's as close to a benzo as anything that, there's the reason that they say it's a benzodiazepine is because it's a tranquilizer for horses and cows. And we're not really sure what the hell to call it because it was never intended to be put into a human being anyway, right? This is xylazine. And xylazine is a horse, right? Equine tranquilizer. This is something that you stick in the ass, the muscle of a horse, and you do it to either calm him down or knock him out. We're mixing that. We, being the people on this planet selling drugs, are mixing that with what used to be fentanyl, right, as a strong opiate. And now instead they're using the drugs from the nitazine family, so iso and phytonitazines. This is a bathtub kind of a drug, like people make meth right, inside a house with a bunch of household chemicals, nitazines can be made the same way. It's a very, very easy recipe to make pain medication. This pain medication, depending on which article you believe, you're going to see the number 30, you'll see the number 50 times stronger than fentanyl. Catch that? Really a terrible substance. There is no reason whatsoever for this stuff to have ever been made. It's super inexpensive. It was synthesized in the 50s, and they thought it had wild potential as a treatment of pain. What they found was that it was way too unpredictable. They used the term unstable. I don't, because it makes it sound like a bomb is going to go off, and that's not the case. But this is something that they couldn't control safely. I mean, safely, they couldn't use this as a way to treat pain. So it kind of got shelved. And the only reason it's popular now is because nobody, no matter how good you did in chemistry, you're probably not going to blow off a batch of Percocet 30s in your garage. But you could blow off a batch of nitazines in your garage if you did all right in school and you got a little bit of instruction. Now, you want a warning? If some genius happens to hear the sound of my voice who goes, well, I made meth, how hard can it be? Probably not that hard. But you getting anything on that ingredients list is going to bring some people to your door, and I promise you, you're never going to get out of prison. And they're not going to give you a 10 to life with the possibility for parole after 10. They're throwing away the key on people that are getting caught with these particular kinds of substances. Drugs that we're now calling trank. You've heard this? Trank. Sometimes people will call it the zombie drug. Just know this. What you're looking at is nodding out, right? All that zombie shit, it all sounds great and it's fun to watch. I'm being serious. Don't hate me. People love watching this. It's why the live feeds from Kensington kill it. There is some fascination that humans have with seeing somebody in that state. And what happens is the nod is literally where you are walking that tightrope between awake and asleep, right? And what the reason it's called the nod is because it's what your head does. And normally the gravity of your head falling forward is enough to wake up the junkie, right? So you start to go out and your head goes and you catch it. You've seen people do it. People say they're playing head tennis. You know, junkies say they're blowing themselves, right? Giving themselves head. They say it a lot nastier than that. But you know, sucking their own whatever, but because you see a guy going like this. And the nod is what you're seeing on Kensington or what you're seeing on Skid Row. The difference is an opiate nod does just that. So when the gravity catches you, you have that simple second of embarrassment where you're like, oh man, I just nodded out, right? Oh, you wake up. Now you don't have to be on drugs to do that. We've all done it at a house, right? My second wife, God bless her, my second wife, we were sitting watching a movie once and I was nodding out. It wasn't a drug thing. It was, I was at that point not on drugs, but she caught me doing just that. And I went like this and I happened to be looking at her and she went, nice. It had me laughing so hard. It was one of those things that we laughed about forever. But standing while sleepwalking, right? The kind of stuff that, like Scotty's talking about, the kind of stuff that you see on Kensington, they're so jacked up that when the head comes down, there's not that moment of, oh my God, I'm embarrassing and I should wake up. They're just sedated. So what happens is the head nods and the person basically they are living in a state, and you look at them and you go, oh, look at that poor miserable SOB, right? I got news from you from the junkie standpoint. In their head, that's just where they want to be. That moment, they are floating in it's the saddest thing in the world, folks, because that is the desired effect. That's not a byproduct. That's an accident. And oh gosh, look what happened. No, that's exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for that feeling where you're so freaking wasted that everything in the world melts away and you forget all of the pain that anybody's ever done to you. Sadly, the reason that this is the perfect storm for addiction is because, we do addiction. We do drugs, rather. We become addicted because the drug takes away. You understand? The drug gives you nothing. And any person who goes, hey, this stuff gives me courage. No, you're brand new to this. And I promise you just don't get it yet. It doesn't give you courage. It takes away fear. Two totally different things, right? Somebody who's courageous looks at fear, accepts it, says, this is what it is. Now I will face that and overcome it. If you walk into a battle, right, whistling do 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 because you don't care, doesn't make you courageous. It makes you ignorant of the dangers you're walking into. It makes you stupid. Two totally different animals. But everybody, no joke, they're wanting that moment of, and that's why as an EMT or as a first responder, bring one of those people back from the dead and watch how pissed off they are at you. They will swing at you. They will spit at you. Well, they will treat you like a Scoville. It will be absolutely horrible. Because they have gone from feeling that moment of bliss, the moment they were looking for, to I just knocked all of the opiates off the MU receptor at the same time. And you go into what's called precipitative withdrawal. Everything's gone. And they go from sick to, from loving life to I hate you. And I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times when you say I saved your life, I wasn't ODing. Right? As far as they're concerned, they were in paradise. They did everything right. So, boy, we digress. But just briefly, if you're just joining us, the Karen Reed trial is on a field trip. The reason they are on a field trip is because they need to go out to the McAlbert's house, the McCabe's and Albert crime scene, where years ago, right, just after Christmas, just before New Year's, there was an accident, air quotes, accident that took place where a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe, was found dead on someone's lawn. Now, we're trying to see whether or not he was killed in a rage by his drunk girlfriend who decided to use her 6,000-pound Lexus as a murder weapon. Throw it in reverse, floor it, right? Get it up going 40 miles an hour or some such shit. It was really flying in a short period of time. In reverse. In fact, she had to have spun the tires to do it because she couldn't have got fast enough, that they claim, in that period of time. Anyway, you were either going to find out whether or not Karen Reed intentionally used her car as a murder weapon to kill her boyfriend cop. Or if, I'm leaning in this direction, John O'Keefe entered that house and he got into a physical altercation. I think it happened in the basement. It's just my theory. And I'll tell you why it's my theory, because it's got nothing to hold it up. Nothing. It's a theory. But the reason it's a theory is because they spent a lot of time in Mass. And a lot of times, if people have a finished basement, it ends up kind of being the place where the guys hang out. Not the man cave kind of thing, but kind of the man cave kind of thing. Finished basements ended up being patty spots. And if mom and dad were going to let you have a patty, they probably let you have it in the basement. And it's just something that is, at least when I was growing up in that part of the world, that was a cultural thing. Right. There was always kind of, if there was a party going on, it was probably in a finished basement. But I believe that they fought down there. And I believe it was probably a one-on-one. I think it was probably that fat cop that's the Fed. Somebody give me his name because I can't ever remember. I tell you what, I'll just look it up because it's going to drive me nuts if I don't. But I believe that there was a fight. Higgins, thank you. I believe there was a fight in the basement. I believe that the fight was between Higgins and it was between O'Keefe. And I don't think Higgins was up for it as much as O'Keefe was. And I think that the people in the room jumped in. Now, I'll tell you something. I've been in more fights than I would like to admit, right? Truthfully, I'm probably embarrassed by the number of fights that I've been in my life. But in prison, in the real world, at a fraternity party, whatever, it is de rigueur. It is basically considered just how it works. That if it's a one-on-one, if there are two dudes squaring off and punching one another, the people around will ensure that when one guy gets the upper hand and commences beating the ever-loving shit out of the other one, right? All parties involved, in an unspoken kind of a rule, at that point, they will step in and they will say something along the lines of, hey, Brian's had enough, right? Tommy's had enough. Hey, it's over, right? I think everybody made their point. We good? We good? This is what guys do. Trust me. Been around a lot of them. Then there's another kind of fight. I'll give you a perfect example. Then there's the kind of fight where two guys square off to get into a one-on-one fist fight, right? This happened to me in a very small town in Vermont where I squared off across from somebody that I don't remember why we didn't like one another, but without a lot of conversation, it was determined that the two of us would figure this out by punching one another. And no one else was trying to jump in on this. This was just two guys fighting until Johnny Scoville came across this. See, everybody else at the party didn't have a problem with two guys fighting one-on-one until one of those guys is your brother. And then if the person fighting lands one on my jaw, Johnny's going to lose his mind. If I sit there and beat the piss out of the guy and the guy never lands a punch, chances are Johnny's going to jump in anyway. Right? There's an expression in Texas that I was always real fond of that says, you can whoop my ass and you can whoop my brother's ass. I doubt you can whoop me and my brother's ass. And that's how it kind of happens. So when you enter this cop fraternity house, right, where every swinging dick in the place is a cop except one who is the boss of all the cops, right? Some selectman or something that they all kind of answer to. Everybody in there is a brother, and they're all a bunch of stuff. They're all Irish, right? They're all cops. They're all multi-generational cops, right? Most of these guys aren't first-generation cops. These are people that have, right? Hey, congratulations. That's huge. That is absolutely the coolest thing I have heard all morning. I should go and grab the official participation trophy of the lifeboat. But just know, tell you what, crew, do me a favor. Throw up some trophies, could you? Cops equals brothers, except John. You know why? Right? The cop that isn't, right? John was definitely not considered the brother in that. But I think that all of those other guys punched John O'Keefe. I think that when this fight happened, and I got news for you too. If the only fights that you've ever seen took place in movies or on television, that's not how they happen. Real fights are over in about 7 or 8 seconds. I'm not kidding. In movies, they last 5 minutes. No one gets into 5-minute fistfights. Everybody would be dead. Fistfights are over in 10 seconds. It's usually 2 or 3 punches, and then it's over. Right? There's none of that. And in a movie, a guy takes a bat, hits a dude in the head. Right? Vin Diesel falls down and crawls across the ground, and then he gets back up. A guy hits you in the head with a bat, you die. That's it. Your computer gets turned off. Right, all of that stuff that you see, a guy gets the fight scene in Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson punches a guy 100 times in the face. Gary Busey. The two of them square off and punch each other 50 times each. Never happens, ever. But according to the cops that found him, not the cops that killed him. Sorry, not sorry. But according to the cops that found him, this guy got the crap kicked out of him, and he might have got hit in the face with a cocktail glass. That was their take. They're professional. I'm a trained police officer. Their first thought wasn't, hey, this guy got hit by a car. Their first thought was somebody beat the piss out of this guy. He got into a bad fist fight. Why? Well, very often when you get into a fist fight, this is your golden area. This is where you're throwing all of your punches. If you're a boxer, you might start punching somebody in the ribs, giving them body shots, because you're setting them up for the later rounds, right? You keep punching somebody in the side to make their arms drop to protect their side so you can hit them in the face. In a fight that takes place in 10 seconds, all of those punches were going on his head. And I think a lot of people punched him. And I think the youngster, the one whose knuckles we saw sandpapered in photos that were taken shortly after that, I think he probably landed a lot of it. I think he was really out of control, right? And then put a 2 in the chat if you're a dog owner. Please. Put a 2 in the chat if you happen to own a dog. As you know, I don't own a dog. I'm a fan. I like dogs. I don't own one. And I'll tell you why. Because very often to me, and I'm not saying to any of you, but very often to me, Dog owners to me don't look like they want to commune with an animal. It looks to me like they want someone who works for them. They want a slave of some sort, right? Dog owners are always very, very proud of the things that they can get their dogs to do by just commanding them to do it. Squirrel commands me, right? I've never had a cat I was able to command. But anyway, the one thing I will say about dogs, and I love more than anything, I really do, what makes a dog so unique and special to me, you good, is that a dog will sense the things that are going on in the room, right? And I was at a party in college where I got bit by a dog, and loyalty off the hook. I got bit by a dog, and the reason that I got bit by a dog was because I, no joke, saved somebody from falling off of a balcony. But the way I did it was I grabbed this person's coat. We were all really liquored up, and there was a part of this, they had a balcony on the back of the house, and there was a railing that wasn't there. Like, this was not in disrepair. It was in the process of being built, but there was one spot that did not have a railing. And this person walked over and looked this way, kind of a thing, and somebody next to them bumped them. And this person was going to go. And they were wearing one of those, at the time, there were coats made by a company called Jerry, probably, unless you're from that. But Jerry down coats were like Stay Puft stuff. And I grabbed this coat, and the speed at which I snatched my hand out to grab this guy got me bit by a dog, because the dog didn't know I was trying to help this person. The dog saw my hand come out at this person really fast. That, in my opinion, happened in that house. This is why the German Shepherd, the beloved family, Brian called his dog It. Enough said. That dog was magically rehomed. It was given a new home in Vermont where it could run free and have a good time. Yeah, I'd be really surprised if someone could produce that dog. I think that dog's probably no longer among the living. But that's just an opinion. But the furrows, right? The big bites into this guy's arm. I think that when the fight started and everybody started throwing haymakers, that this German Shepherd did what amazing dogs did. Right? That dog did what dogs do. That dog did why we get dogs like that. He defended his owner, or thought he was defending his owner, or whatever. But this guy ended up with marks on his arms, right? On one arm. He's got marks on his arm that definitely looks like maybe he got bit by a dog. So let's say this. Prosecution says he wasn't bit by a dog. Okay, what did it? What messed up his arm and nothing else? Think of the mechanism. You got your Lexus, right? In reverse. It hits him. Now, it doesn't run him over. They don't even claim it runs them over because there's just no injuries cool enough to say, yeah, you know, a 6,000-pound SUV rolled over the top of them. That's not gonna make any sense. So they have to just say it was kind of like a golf club smacking a golf ball, right? Contact is made. John O'Keefe goes flying. When he goes flying, his back hits the ground. If you've ever had this happen to you, your head acts sort of like a whip. And when your body hits the ground, the last thing that hits is your head. As a skier, over rotating a backflip, I can't tell you how many times this happened. Gracie Twinkletoes says, when I was a kid, my dad used to call his dog Scrotum. It's a tough name for a dog. Seriously, I bet the dog probably loved it. That is a tough one. Yeah, Brian called his dog It. That dog, the injuries are very consistent with a dog bite. And a dog bite would make a lot of sense if there were people beating the crap out of somebody in a basement. That dog is going to do what a dog does, right? I can't say with any degree of certainty that what I just told you is what happened. But what I can tell you is a forensic pathologist has said the shot to the back of John O'Keefe's head, right? That, by the way, was created by him hitting something that could only be described as a stare. It was something that made a 90 degree, right? That was a sharp, finished, perfect edge. Did not exist anywhere on the front yard where he was hit by a car, allegedly. So I think he got in a fight in the basement. I think he hit his head on the stairs. I mean, kind of plain and simple. That's my thought. Can't prove it. But the forensic pathologist is going to tell you that turned off the computer completely. After that shot to the head, John O'Keefe was no more. Doesn't mean he was dead, but it means he never regained consciousness. He never spoke again. He never got back up and walked. He never did anything after that shot to the head. That was the end of his life for all intent and purpose, right? That was it. Then the cover-up begins, right? Doesn't mean he died right then, but these guys are cops. These guys have been around a lot of stiffs, a lot of dead bodies. By the way, if they didn't want John O'Keefe dead, everybody there is a first responder, right? My gut, and I'm just telling you, all this is speculation, folks. This is just a retired criminal giving you my opinion. But I believe that what probably happened was when John O'Keefe went down and his head hit that stair, it made a sound that some of the people in the room were probably familiar with, because if you've been around enough fistfights, there is a sound that is made when knuckles bounce off of someone's head. It is a unique sound. And it's crazy. You watch guys playing poker in prison, and someone will get in a fight 25 cells away. You hear that first sound, you know exactly what's going on. It's such a unique sound. There's also a sound when the head hits the ground. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or awful or anything else, but it sounds like a dropped pumpkin. It's just a horrific sound. And there's a moment of realization. I've heard this more times than I would like to have heard it. And there's that split second where you go, oh my God, that was his skull. No matter how angry everybody at a fight scene is, that stops everybody in their tracks briefly. It is so unbelievable a sound that, yeah, and a head on the ground is so dangerous. It really is. And imagine, Scotty, the sound, right? That hits the ground. All of those people hear it. I promise you. The violence, that everything stops. And you do that. Oh my God, right? Is he dead? Lenny nails it. There was no going back after that. Wow, you study criminal law in Brazil. God bless you. That cannot be easy. Yeah, gotta be interesting. So after that sound, no going back. Forensic pathologist says that's the one. Aggression stopped. I don't think anybody punched John in the head after his head hit that stair. I don't believe that. No reason to. In fact, they went into the woo-woos, right? If you've never been there, but it's where you go, woo, like, oh boy, man, it's over. It's over. It's when you drive away from the bank and you see lights in your rearview mirror. It's that moment that you go from everything is okay to my whole world just exploded. When they heard his head hit that stairs, that happened. I promise. Now, how many people were there? Well, there's 5 different DNA samples, all male, found on John O'Keefe's shoe. So I'm going to say 5 people were involved. I think that's a fairly safe bet. Could be more, right? Couldn't be less. Because I don't care if you helped carry him out, you're involved. So if 5 people touch those shoes, 5 people are involved. And by the way, the government feels the same way, right? If you do something in the commission of a felony, if you and I sit down and I go, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to rob the bank on 5th Street. We're going to do it Saturday, right? 2:00, blah, blah, blah. Everybody goes out to rob that bank. You got a getaway driver. You got 2 guys that are going in, right? I'm just sitting at the house watching Seinfeld. They go in. The teller gets lippy. Someone shoots the teller. I'm just as guilty sitting in my living room watching Seinfeld as the person that pulled the trigger. No difference in sentence, right? It's felony murder. During the commission of a felony, somebody died. Everybody involved is busted. They're all in on it. And anybody that had knowledge of it, that covered it up, everybody's in on it. Everybody. Now, one of the things that you keep hearing people say all the time in the press is that there's no way you could keep a conspiracy going with this many people that knew. Someone would break. And I'll tell you something. I'm always the guy saying that. I'm the guy saying that before anybody else says it. 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. And I'll tell you what, 6 people can keep a secret if 6 of them are cops. This is a family that knows that if you talk, people get fired and go to prison. This isn't their first rodeo. Hell, it ain't their 5th rodeo, right? Grandpa had these stories. Great grandpa had these stories. This is what cops do. They protect each other. And you know what? Watch Jennifer McCabe on the stand. Watch that woman on the stand. These are cop wives, right? These are women that they know exactly what this process. Every time their husband comes home and goes, oh man, that defense attorney kicked my ass on the stand today. You wouldn't believe it. I'm not talking about this case. I'm talking about every other case. You know how many times cops have to get on a witness stand? This wasn't Brian's first time on the stand. Any of these guys, they live in courtrooms talking on the stand. And Jen McCain, all of the wives, all of the daughters, these people, these are cop families. If you can understand just how different that is, right? Thick blue line. That's right. Yeah, thick blue line. Lenny nailed it. They protect one another. How do we know that? We know that because Trooper Proctor, the very first night that this happened, right? He just got put on the case. Takes his cell phone, starts texting his homeboys from high school. Now, I got news for you. If you got a group text with 8 guys that you went to high school with and you're 45, I question you as a human being. That seems really odd to me. I'm sorry. It just does. Seems like a group of guys that didn't grow up. You're still getting together and getting shafazed on the weekends with your friends from high school and you're in your 50s. That's something odd to me. But anyway, I digress. Trooper Proctor sends out a post where he talks about this woman's medical problems. She had some work done. I don't think she has a colostomy bag, but she's had to have some work to do some bypass or whatever because she's had really serious problems colorectally, right? Like you would get colon cancer kind of stuff. She's had a lot of problems, a lot of surgeries. And he, referred to that as a leaky balloon knot. Says her ass leaks. He also said she's not bad looking and then talked about her tits versus her ass, that kind of stuff. Very classy. And you know what? Who cares? I'm sorry. Who cares? Guys talk like that when people aren't around. Guys say a lot of crap when they think no one's around. Guys say a lot of crap when they think no one is ever going to hear it. It's not always right. It's not always nice. It's not always true. But that's how people talk. And I got news for you. You ladies do it too. I have been privy to conversations that you ladies have when you don't think guys are around, and it's very different, right? And guess what? Who cares? But it becomes a problem because I honestly don't care. It was not a good thing to do, but it doesn't make her innocent or guilty. And we can bring him on the stand to show him he's a jackass because he said, she's got great tits or whatever. Okay, he's an ass. That's got nothing to do with the case. It really doesn't, right? But this next part does. Because logic would say this. If a person is served 14 drinks at a bar, 14 drinks at a bar, and they let them walk out and drive, that bar is probably going to be held criminally liable. Whether you think that's right or wrong, it has been litigated. This has happened a gazillion times, right? Really. So the question comes up, hey, if he's found dead on someone's lawn, and this happened after an after party, are the people who own the house screwed? Right? That's a legit question, isn't it? If you got kids, you throw a keg party and some kid leaves your house and has a DUI car crash. You're on the hook as a parent that let that person drink at your house. And that was the question. And if you heard how it was asked, it was very obvious. Are the homeowners screwed too? The answer was, nah, he's a Boston cop too. Is the homeowner in trouble? Nope. The homeowner's a Boston cop too. So what you're saying is a Boston cop ain't going to get in any trouble. No chance, right? Because I'm a cop and I'm running this case. And nobody who's a cop is going to be in any trouble in this. Is the homeowner going to be in trouble? Nope. They're a Boston cop too. I don't care what verbal gymnastics or mental gymnastics you want to do to try to explain to me how that response says anything other than we're crooked. I'm open-minded. Honestly, get creative. Make me think of a way. Help me think of a way where the response, they're not going to be in trouble. They're also a Boston cop, doesn't mean this is fixed. That's reasonable doubt, right? That's it. From that point forward, everything else is just smoke and mirrors. That's reasonable doubt. The person at the house couldn't be in any trouble. They're a cop, right? Cops can't get in trouble. Drunk teachers, professors who worked in the financial industry, they can get in trouble, especially if we help them along. I don't know. I don't know if they murdered him in the basement. I would be willing to bet you my paycheck on it. All right? I would. And if I had to put a bet on it, that's where my money would go. This was a fight that got out of control. It's a fight that got out of control in the basement of a house. It's sad. It's tragic. But it was an accident. I believe that. Even if 5 guys were swinging at him, they weren't swinging at him to kill him. They were swinging at him because it was a fight. And then the fight caused somebody to die. Newsflash to everybody on planet Earth, right? To everybody on planet Earth. You always get 5 times more effed up after the crime because of the things that you try to do to cover it, right? Watergate. Think the Watergate break-in, right? Think any of these. It's the cover-up that's always so much worse. If you fall on your sword, I've told the story so many times, you guys are just going to be bummed out that I'm doing it again, but I don't care. When I was in Lewisburg, there was a black gentleman that lived next door to me, and he was in my vent. In other words, I could talk through a hole in the wall to him. And this is a very old prison, and the vents are a grate that's about 2 foot by 2 foot, and the holes in it are big enough that you can almost put a pinky in it, right? Huge holes. So I would talk to the guy, and he told me the story. You know, he says, "How did you end up in here?" And you tell him, and I said, "How did you end up in here?" And it was, he had burglary tools in the trunk of his car. And he knew that if he got pulled over and the cop found the burglary tools, he was looking at a 4-year sentence. So he ran. And then when he crashed the car, they put him in the back of the police car, and the cops were out talking about it. He got his cuffs under his legs, crawled through the hole, stole the police car, crashed that, carjacked a guy, right? For real. Called a pizza to the house that he had carjacked a guy to, home invaded the guy's house, called a pizza delivery guy there, kidnapped him, put him in the trunk of the car, and took his car to drive to Philly. By the time it was all said and done, he turned it into a life sentence. If the people in that house said this was a fist fight, we got into mutual combat, I hit him, he fell down and hit his head, nobody would have done a day. Especially cops. Nobody would have done a day. Didn't work out that way. People, would you like you to put you on hold for one moment? All right? I need to grab a piece of equipment. So that was not very professional, was it? But if by some chance, let's see here. Yeah, can you hear me? Can we get a 5x5? Sorry, peeps, but I had to go and grab a piece of equipment, and standing up and walking around. Yeah, good. Thank you. Give me a key. That walking around stuff isn't working out very well for me this morning. My back is, my back is feeling it. So I figured I would spare you that process. So we left off we were talking about the fact that these people could have fallen on the sword, right? These people could have fallen on the sword. And by the way, as a human being, this is good advice always, right? As criminals, there's two types of criminals, and one they call a rabbit. And you'll hear guys say, I'm a rabbit. Rabbits run, right? The police turn on the lights. They push their foot to the accelerator. The cop says, hey, freeze. They run. Put your hands up. They jump the fence. I've never been that guy. Just never been that guy. Maybe it's because I was never a particularly fast runner. Maybe it's just that, I don't know. Maybe I got lucky, right? Because everybody that I know who's a rabbit managed to get really long prison sentences based on the things that they didn't break the law doing, the things that they did trying to escape. Now, that's not to say I've never, ever run, but I've done it so few times that I could count it on the peace symbol, and in both cases, it was one of those things where I knew I could get away. It was just one of those magic situations where, it wasn't even running so much as just sort of being sneaky. It's probably a story for another day. But speaking of stories for another day, tonight on the Lifeboat, I am going to be doing a show that is going to be called the Lewisburg Cannibal. I've told the stories many times in the past about the gentleman that I lived with, Donald Scott Taylor. I use his name because he is no longer with us. I'm not outing him. He's since gone to the other side. But I've told the stories many times about this guy and the crazy stuff he did. He bit the ears off of his previous cellie. Like, that's a really hard thing to hear and wrap your head around. Like, for instance, no joke, when they came in, he was sitting on the floor chewing on one. And the cop said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Eating an ear. Tastes like bacon." No joke, right? This is a really sick individual. And we were sitting in the cell, and he's telling me these stories. And I said to him, he goes, "You could write a book about me when you get out." I said, "No one would believe it, Taylor. Nobody would believe it." And he goes, "I could give you all my write-ups." So the other day, while cleaning out some stuff in my house, I came across my Donald Scott Taylor file. I have a picture of him as well. He was very ill, Kristen Melinda. He was very, very ill. But I'm going to be doing a show about him, and I'm going to read it's rare that you come across something and you go, "Oh my God, I actually have some receipts of sorts," because you hear the stories about a guy like this and you go, "There's no way that's true." He hollowed out a mattress. Now, mattresses in prison are this wide, right? And they're very often they're green or they're clear plastic. They don't come in other colors. They're usually either green or they're clear plastic. This was a green one, and he cut a hole in the top, pulled all the stuffing out, cut a hole in the top that his head could fit through, and he had his arms and his legs coming out the side, and he was crawling around like wearing this thing, looking like a lizard. And this is, again, it's disturbing. It is, because it's kind of mental illness on display. But he had a lot of fun with the police. It was when he got arrested, he just decided that every chance he got, he was going to make this difficult on anybody with a badge. It makes for very interesting reading. So we're gonna visit. And rest in peace, anyone he got a hold of. Amazingly, he only killed one person. And that's what he was spending the rest of his life in prison for. But he certainly tried to get a lot more. He was just incredibly violent. But I'm going to be talking about that this evening. Also, I want to thank everybody that reached out to me after the show that I did the other night, where I talked about the elephant in the room, so to speak. Right? We're obviously. It's a very popular topic of conversation with a lot of the people that hate me and my ex-girlfriend. And I spoke a little about Reese and I the other night, and I got a lot of positive feedback. I would say most of it was positive. Of course, I got the 10% that just wanted to tell me that I'm a criminal and a con man and a rapist and a murderer and all that stuff. But there was a lot of really kind things said. And there were also a different group that I haven't encountered before on the boat. And those are people that are really pissed at my ex and want me to know that they hate her as much as I do, kind of a thing. And makes me nervous. It really does. I find myself hating, and it really is an unhealthy emotion. I'm not doing this for I'm not BSing any of this. Like, this is really from the heart. It's an ugly emotion, right? It really is an ugly emotion. It does nothing but eat people from the inside out. And a bunch of you reached out yesterday to tell me that there were people releasing stuff. I don't need to know any of it. I really don't. I appreciate it, right? And the reason that somebody reached out was they said, hey, that cat lives in a two-party state. If he's playing something, both people on the tape need to have given that person approval to do it. I understand everybody kind of wants to help or whatever. Let me see if I can explain this in a way that I honestly don't care, right? I really don't. This is everybody, like, I'm not telling you anything you didn't know, but a bomb got dropped off, right? And it went boom. And there's something really lovely, believe it or not, about a bomb going off in your life, because there aren't any more bombs, right? There really aren't. And I don't give a damn about my bad reputation. They can have the good time they're having. It doesn't change what I do, how I do it, or anything else. Unless we start spending more time hating than we do moving towards love. And I literally found myself spending hours where the only emotion that I was running with was hate. And if you're spending hours hating, you're doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong, not you. I'm not making these statements for anybody other than me. But if I'm spending that much time sitting there and hating, I'm doing something wrong. And it's, what do they say? It's like drinking poison in hopes of killing someone else, right? Carrying this stuff around. The purpose of that show the other night was to set the bags down and walk away from them, right? I don't need to carry hate anymore. Who have we got? It just could be random people, although the haircut could be, no, too young to be Bev. Auntie Bev. Yeah. Mr. Donald Scott Taylor was very, very sick. And I'll tell a quick story just because there's always time to kill, right? But the very first day that I met him, I got brought into, this is a special management unit, so you're locked down 24/7. So as I get brought in and we uncut for, he says, what are you in prison for? And not all guys ask that, believe it or not. But he said, what are you in prison for? And I said, bank robbery, blah, blah, blah. And began to tell him a story. And he said, well, what was your drug? Nobody robs banks because they want to be rich, right? Nobody ever says, it's not like Fast and Furious or any of those other, Heat. Bank robbers don't steal money to buy beautiful homes and drive Ferraris. Bank robbers rob banks to do heroin, right? Or smoke crack or whatever their drug of choice is. So he says, what was your drug of choice? And I said, heroin. That was, I said, how about you? And he says, gas. And I said, I'm sorry. He goes, gas. And I go, I don't know what that is. Right now, I'm assuming that, maybe that's a street name, right? For a drug. I don't know. Right. Maybe it's a street name. So I go, yeah, I don't know what gas is. He goes, it comes in leaded and unleaded. You put it in people's cars so that the car moves. I go, gasoline? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, how the hell is gasoline a drug? And he's like, you breathe it in. And honest to God, people, I thought he was kidding. I mean, I know that there are people who can huff. I mean, I know it's possible to huff gasoline, but to have somebody listed as your drug of choice, I said, and like that. So if you could do any drug today, you'd like to get you a little gasoline. And he said, yeah. Absolutely blew my mind. But, and we'll talk about it tonight, but it's one of those case studies there are drugs out there, right, that get you a buzz because you have a receptor in your brain, like the mu receptor, and the morphine molecule comes in and it turns a key, and then that receptor lets some juice flow, and that juice gets you high. And then there is hypoxia, right? Or you're just going to breathe in so many fumes, and you're going to deprive your brain of oxygen, and instead give it gasoline fumes, and that's going to make you feel a buzz because you're popping brain cells like popcorn. And I think that sadly Taylor blew his mind. And I do hope he's resting in peace. Did they run out of nitrous oxide? I don't think so. Here was the deal. I think necessity being the mother of invention. He lived in New Mexico, and he lived on a farm that grew soybeans. And to hear him describe it, you could almost shoot a gun and not have the bullet get to the other side of the soy fields. Like, he was talking miles and miles of soy fields is where he lived. And, he said that to get to town took 40 minutes. He didn't really know. He had friends that he would hang out with when he was in school, but during, when season was off or whatever, school was off, he didn't see anybody. But they had a 500-gallon tank full of gasoline that would get filled up for all of the tools. I think it was a guy that wanted a head change, and the only thing around was gasoline. Terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying. But Darcy says, I liked math. I did a lot of that. I did a lot of math. It was not, definitely was not my drug of choice. But for me, it was meth was a device that could keep me awake longer so that I could do more heroin. I mean, honestly, that's really what it came down to. If I could stay awake longer, I could do more heroin, right, before I would nod out. I never nodded out right after using. I was a person that would have to do smack all day long so that I could nod out at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, 7 or 8 grams into it, over the course of the day. But I could never, it was very different. But, and I'll tell you what, Darcy, meth has changed so much. That's one of the drugs that in the course of the time that I've been on planet Earth, the recipe for that drug has changed so dramatically. When those of us of a specific age, the youngsters that are coming up now that are doing this ephedrine, cold cook, where they make it with anhydrous ammonia and lithium, and we used to make stuff with something called P2P, which they used to call it prop dope, right? Propanol, and it had a very different effect on the end user. It didn't cause you to pick your face and stare out the blinds. I'm not glorifying the drug. I promise you it was poison, but it was a different kind of poison. And it was the kind of poison that didn't make people as weird as the stuff that they got now. But once the government said this propanol stuff's got to go, right? They got rid of the prop, and it made it almost impossible to get. And the chemists who made this stuff figured out that they had a new all-American version of this, right? They called the red, white, and blue method. And you used, the white was ephedrine. The blue was iodine crystals, I believe. It was red iodine crystals and blue, red phosphorus and blue iodine crystals. That's what it was. Red phosphorus and blue iodine crystals. And that required a Bunsen burner. That required heating a process. So there was an actual cook, right? Think Walter White. They were actually cooking, right? A batch. That became known as white boy dope, right? Or biker dope. They busted a Canadian lab that was doing it with P2P or whatever it's called. Wow, how about that? Yeah, you don't see a lot of prop dope left because the government of the United States of America, anyway, got very, very serious about controlling the flow of that particular ingredient, right? If you could just take prop off the market, then you didn't have to worry about people making prop dope. And I'll tell you just how bad and how incredible all this is. If you ever look on an electric pole, like a telephone pole, they have those transformers. Looks like a big Coca-Cola can, except they're usually gray, and they got a couple of wires that come out of the top of it. I did prison time with a guy who was stealing those because they have propanol in them. You're going up onto a high voltage wire to steal those to get the propanol out of them. Absolutely insane. He would also steal salt licks from farmers because the ones that are medicated have a crap load of ephedrine in it. So it's, anyway. Then after the red, white, and blue method, which they called white boy dope, or there was biker dope. It was what, it was crank. Guys called it crank. Yeah, it is really rare, Scotty. You don't run into probe dope. Hey, lady once told me if you can make chocolate chip cookies, you can make meth. I never tested her theory. Well, here's what happened, Krista Melinda. Then we came to what was called the cold cook, right? This did not require a Bunsen burner. This didn't require putting any heat to anything. This was hey, we got an even better way. And the better way, according to them, is to have the ingredients be, again, your ephedrine. This is your pseudoephedrine pills, right? Pseudos. Crap loads of boxes of that. And then you use lithium, right? Strips, which they get out of batteries. So they go into Home Depot and they steal lithium batteries. And they have to take the thing apart and pull the little strip out. It's metal. Odd. If that strip gets wet, it catches fire, right? If you drop a bead of sweat on it, it will it instantly, when it gets wet, comes into contact with water, it spontaneously combusts, right? Kind of interesting. So the third ingredient is anhydrous ammonia, which literally means ammonia without any water in it, right? So this stuff looks like something from, the mad scientist's laboratory, because you've got smoke. As soon as you uncork this stuff, smoke starts rolling all out. There's no water. It has to be very, very cold. This stuff has to be kept pressurized. So they use the anhydrous ammonia. They put that into a big container, and then they throw those lithium strips. Now, there's more of a process ahead of that, but they throw those lithium strips in there. And when they do, it's fascinating. It looks like a lightning storm. It looks like an electrical storm. You look down in there and you'll see bolts of electricity or bolts of lightning or whatever flying across the inside of this concoction full of anhydrous ammonia and lithium and the pseudo or whatever. And then they take a chemical and they do what's called gassing. There's a long tube and they take muriatic acid and they put it into a container, and then they throw in tinfoil balls rolled up. And the tinfoil and the muriatic acid react with one another, and it causes a gas, which is probably, deadly and toxic and all that. But that gas starts to come out of the end of the hose. You take the hose and you put it right above the fluid, right? And you just start going like this around as that stuff is coming down, and it begins to rain. You look inside and it just starts to rain. Big chunks of meth, shards just fall to the bottom. Absolutely fascinating. It was one of the most interesting things to watch someone do of anything ever. Honestly, I was fascinated the entire time. I was also terrified. I had a real feeling that someone was going to show up at any point and get us caught, but we did it in the woods. A couple of nice girls there walking through Mass, stopping by, say hi to the people at the Karen Reed trial. Beautiful old town, isn't it? The Northeast is fantastic. I love that part of the world. Love Massachusetts. Love all of it. But the longer a place has been around, right? The longer we've had a city, the better a chance it is that bad elements have really sort of become part of the tapestry. I'm not saying that means everywhere in the Northeast has crooked cops. Yeah, I am saying that. Every place on earth has crooked cops. But I believe the longer a place has been around, the more chance you have of that. I think when you create a police force, you don't get a lot of people on day one who are like, hey, I think I'll become a crooked cop. I think that those are things that take place over time, right? I could be wrong. Yeah, Scotty, it is scary stuff. So even the meth of today is different from the meth of a decade ago. Wow. If we could move all technology as quickly, the drug trade might be doing better. You know what? This is a really interesting question, Kristen Melinda. And I need to do a show about this, because it's really an interesting thought to think about, isn't it? So when I was a senior in high school, we were still doing Quaaludes. You could still get Seconal and Tuinol and drugs like that. So just how much the world has changed in terms of drugs. THC was probably in the 7 to 9% range, and now there's stuff that you can get all the way up to 90 and 98% if you're buying the shatter. Hey, it's a cop on a bike. Sorry, you know I'm a fan. He was pedaling like someone was in trouble. He might have just seen a dope deal. What's going on there, trooper? I guess you're not a trooper if you're on a bike. Can you call that person a trooper? Jury has left. There he is. Hey, you got a donut? I'm sorry. Low hanging fruit. Low hanging fruit. Don't judge me. So you look at the weed, right? And the difference in the strength of that product since when we were in school. What else? Roofies are gone. Those used to be around. They're gone. Cocaine, for the most part, is a completely different drug in 2025 than it was in 1988. It has changed so much. Most of the cocaine on the street has never seen a coca plant. Most of the cocaine on the street now is manufactured in a lab in China. It's not even real blow. Come here, sweetheart. Come here. Oh. Look who I got. SNZ. Squirrel nut zipper. She plays all day long with her sister now. Literally all day long. It's all they do. And then it really is fascinating how quickly the drug world changes. When I was a kid, they called the stuff crank. And the first time I did crank, I was up for probably 3 days. There was no sleep, but I didn't pick my face. I didn't look out the window. It was not it wasn't a great experience, but it wasn't horrifying. The last time I did meth, it was horrifying. It really was. It was horrifying. Bruna, she is absolutely a beautiful cat and probably the sweetest cat on planet Earth. She has a little sister that is arguably one of the most beautiful cats on earth. Honestly, if you've never seen Katy Perry, she is just absolutely beautiful. She's also a kitten. Kittens are jerks, man. Kittens are cats that are just jerks. That's really all they are. I've said this a million times. I love cats. I'm really not a kitten fan. I love cats, but you got to get by that kitten phase to get them. And right now, she's just annoying. I can't leave a watch anywhere. If I leave a watch on the table, she'll knock a watch off. You can't leave anything anywhere. She'll knock it off. Already broken a few glasses. You know how it is. All right, people. They're not going to allow us to see the field trip, which is kind of a bummer. I was really kind of holding out some kind of hope that they might. I will be back this evening. By the way, if by some chance they end up back in court, if by some chance they end up back in court, then we're going to fire this back up. If they're ever on record, I'm going to try to be here. For those of you who are believers, I will take all the thoughts and prayers you can get. And if you want to do it specifically, my lower back is really bad. And I'm also having some chest pains. Nothing the end of the world, but I could use but I'll take the prayers, right? I really will. I'll take the prayers. And let's try to reduce a little harm, eh? For real. Let's try to reduce a little harm in whatever form that takes. You'll thank me later. You probably won't. All right, peeps. Between now and tonight, or the next time we see each other, try to reduce a little harm. Try to be kinder to one another. And for the love of God, right? Please use your R's wisely. Right? All of this Trupa and Procta, scary people. Bring back the R. Sorry, Massachusetts. All right, peeps. Make it a good one.